What is up, everybody? We have made it to draft week. Glad you're here with us as we get set for PFN's Draft Insider show, the week of the NFL draft, all the stuff that we've been talking about since the end of the Super Bowl and everything else that's been going on. Finally, it is culminating with the draft just 2 nights away. Going to be in Vegas this year, where it should have been in 2020. Then COVID changed the world, and that was no longer available to us. But we are here in Las Vegas, ready to roll, and we are excited for the show tonight. It's going to be great. We got a very special guest, which we'll get to in just a little minute. But first, before we do that, let me, of course, bring in my cohort on PFN Draft Insider. That, of course, is the great Tony Pauline. Tony, I feel like this is what we wait for basically after the Super Bowl, right? Everything that we do leads up to this week, and it's finally here.
Well, for some of us, it's a 12-year cycle. So, yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people who after the Super Bowl, it's free agency, it's the combine, it's free agency, and it's the draft. And, I mean, the way the NFL has made this thing into its own beast, and I'm sure you're going to experience it out in Vegas, it's finally here. And it's here, and it's exciting this year because you just don't know what's going to happen, as we'll get into.
Yeah. By the way, Andrew, thank you for the shout out there. We appreciate it. We try not to be clickbait, even though these faces could never be clickbait. We understand that. But by the way, don't forget, the draft is going to be Thursday night. And of course, the Pro Football Network is rising to the level of the NFL draft with their NFL draft show. Join us starting at 7 o'clock Eastern on the Pro Football Network News YouTube channel for a Q&A pre-show with me live from Las Vegas. About plenty of stuff going on here and lots of interviews and information for you. And then, of course, the latest rumors and news from Tony Pauline. And then after that gets going, Brett and Tony will be announcing every pick as soon as they have the pick in live. No need to watch anywhere else but PFN. And PFN will absolutely have you covered. So we got a lot to get to this week, Tony, because lives are going to change. Like that's the – like we all look at this as entertainment, and it is. It's fun, and it's an experience, and it's a spectacle, and it's something to give us that little hit of football. But at the end of the day, lives are going to change for so many different young men based on where they're drafted and where they're going, and they're going to recognize and realize their dreams. And one of those players that's going to have their dreams realized is a special guest on the show now, and let's bring him in. Tight end Trey McBride out of Colorado State, the Mackey Award winner, which those of you that don't know goes to the best tight end in college ball. And Trey joins us now from Fort Collins. First of all, Trey, great name. You should be the first overall pick based on name alone.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I love the name. It just kind of flows right off the tongue. So, I mean, it's smooth.
Look, this is a huge draft for me. I have a Trey McBride and I have a Traylon Burks. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm not sure here. Are you a third? Yeah. Are you a third? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I'm the third child in my family is the reason I got that. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, listen, there's a lot to get into with you. And again, we'll start here and then I'll let Tony take the next question. But what have you been hearing? Like, we've heard end of the first round, early second round. What are you hearing from your people about where you expect to be drafted?
Yeah, I'm kind of in that same boat as you guys, kind of in that same range, really just kind of up in the air. There's so much that's going to change in the next day or two, teams trading picks around, things like that. So it's really hard to tell, but, I'm kind of hearing the same thing and just kind of really eager to find out where it is.
Trey, what's the last week been like? I mean, have you been busy with Zoom calls? Have teams been calling you night and day? Are they calling you early in the morning? Has it been busy or has it been, kind of calm the past week?
Yeah, it's actually, believe it or not, the last week has probably been the most calm. It's obviously teams are calling, making sure they have the right phone number, things like that. But I've actually been very fortunate. I've got a lot of golf in, been trying to, take my mind off things, playing some golf and things like that. But it's really slowed down this past week. And it's actually been, kind of relieving just leading into this draft.
Okay. So it's been quiet, who have you had the most communication with? And sometimes this means nothing. Like Edgerrin James tells this great story. The Eagles actually flew him up to Philadelphia pre-draft, and then no one picked him up. It was the total smokescreen, and he just sat there. No one talked to him, and then he flew back to Florida. And they never were going to pick him. So things can be weird. But in the pre-draft process, which teams have you had the most contact with?
Yeah, I've definitely talked to all 32 teams, but really, I had 2 top 30 visits. One with the Titans and one with the Jaguars. But really, no one's really kind of showing their cards. No one's really kind of leaning, one way or the other. It's kind of been even keel. It's kind of really tough because I'm not really getting any feels from any teams, and it makes it more exciting because you have no clue where you're headed.
And people say, well, he only had 2 top 30 visits. Let's not forget, Trey McBride was at the Senior Bowl. He was also at the Combine. So I'm sure when you were at the Senior Bowl, you probably sat with and spent a lot of time with all 32 teams that were in Mobile.
No doubt, yeah. So in Mobile, I met with all 32 teams, had about a half an hour conversation with each team. And then again at the Combine, you do this formal interviews. And I had, I think I had 10 or 11 formal interviews with, head coach, general manager, things like that. So, I've definitely been in contact with a ton of teams, definitely, all 32. But yeah, just, no one's really showing their hands yet.
Tennessee is interesting because, of course, Tennessee and Baltimore seem to use more tight ends than everybody. Sometimes I feel like Mike Vrabel, if he could line up with 7 tight ends, a quarterback, and 4 blockers, I think he'd be very happy. So,
no doubt.
Was there a particular coach or general manager or position coach through the process that you sort of grew enamored with in the process?
No one really. I mean, all of them really had great conversations with everybody. No one really, struck me a good way or bad way. It was just all really good conversations, and learned a lot from these guys, and really just wanted to know more about them. So it was really cool in that sense, just to kind of get to learn more about them or their program or, their franchise that they have.
I want to go back to those Combine meetings. Those can get kind of intense, and sometimes they'll ask questions out of left field that you didn't expect.
Stress questions.
Without naming the teams, what were some of the crazier questions, or the questions that you thought after the race, you're like, what is that all about?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I didn't really get any tough questions. I actually got one that was a little strange. One of the teams asked me, what color is chocolate? And then I got, I was like, brown. And then they go, well, there's dark chocolate, that's black. There's white chocolate. And I was like, all right, well, I didn't know that there was like a right or wrong answer to this. I just kind of first thing that came on my mind and things like that. I guess I didn't really think about all the different colors of chocolate. And I don't know what that has to do with playing football, but it was definitely one out of left field that I was like, okay, well, that was good.
First of all, I don't think dark is a color. Okay.
Yeah,
I think
was
just dark and light. I think there's dark brown and light brown when it comes to chocolate. And yeah, the overlying question is, I would have been so great if you had said, hey, I'll give you an answer, but what the hell does that have to do with anything?
Yeah,
that might have been the best response.
Yeah, I probably should have did something like that.
I'll give you an answer, but tell me what the hell that has to do with me catching a football before you're picking up a blitzer.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I was just like, yeah, I guess. I don't know what that has to do with playing football, but
chocolate. Chocolate, man, come on.
No, Trey, what has the whole draft process been like? Season ends, Senior Bowl, Combine. Has it been nonstop go for you?
Yeah, it's been nonstop, but it's actually been a lot of fun. After the season, went and trained, and I was actually in Phoenix, and I was training down there. It was actually a lot of fun. And then, went to the Senior Bowl, went to the Combine, and it's just been a lot of interviews, a lot of, meeting with teams. And it's just been so cool to meet so many people, talk to so many people, and just talk football. I love football, so just talking football is fun to me. So it's been a lot of fun.
Well, let's stick on this for a minute, because a lot of great kids, a lot of great athletes in high school play a bunch of different sports. I'm sure you were the same way, right? What sports did you play in high school?
Yeah, so I played basketball and baseball as well.
All right. So when did you know, or maybe you didn't, or when did you know, hey man, like I think football might be my best bet? Like when did football become the highest level of all those sports for you?
I think I really excelled in all 3 sports, and I really had the option to go play any sport I wanted in college. But football is just, I always loved it more. I knew I wasn't going to be a very good basketball player. I wasn't a 7-foot guy, and I played like a center, so I knew that was out of the picture. I wasn't a shooting guard by any means. And then, baseball, I loved it. I really considered playing baseball, but, my brother played football, and I kind of wanted to follow in his footsteps and go and play football. That's always been my love and passion. So probably, my sophomore, junior year is when I loved playing all 3 sports, but I really, knew I was going to play football in college.
Want to go back and ask you a couple questions about your career at Colorado State. Yeah. Last couple of seasons wasn't too good, and losing records, had a coaching change. Who was the toughest defender that you faced while you were there? Was there one guy that, obviously you want to be on your game every time you step to the line, but was there one guy that said you was tougher than the rest and you had to maybe do some extra preparation for?
Yeah, we did play a lot of really good teams and things like that. I think this past season we played the Hawkeyes, Iowa Hawkeyes, and that game really ringed a bell because they were tough. They ran to the ball, but they had a linebacker. he actually didn't declare this year. Number 31, I forget his name, but he was a heck of a player. He ran to the ball well, and he just was always, around the football. And I really enjoyed playing against guys like that. It just, makes everything more fun when you have a challenging opponent like that.
Trey McBride with us, Colorado State tight end. Sorry, Tony, if you had another question, go ahead. I'll finish up after
you
that.
caught a ton of passes at Colorado State. I mean, there were situations where it was obvious the opponents knew you were getting the ball and they couldn't stop you. Did they have a lot of design plays, Trey McBride specials or whatever, where specifically for you?
Yeah, I was very fortunate that my coaches really had a lot of trust and faith in me, and they really did believe in me to make plays, and that was cool. They did design a lot of plays, and wanted to get me open, switching me, moving me around to put me in position to get open, and you usually know where the ball's going to go before the play, so they would kind of put me in those positions, and I was just very grateful that the coaches had that trust and faith in me to go and make plays, and yeah, they definitely did have plays drawn up for me and things like that, and I loved every second of it.
All right, so if you were watching an NFL game and you're seeing tight ends play, is there a tight end that you think your game is similar to that's in the league right now?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of really good tight ends in the league, and there's so many guys to watch. I love watching guys like, Jack Doyle, who actually just retired. Mark Andrews is a heck of a tight end to watch. He kind of does it all. George Kittle, guys like that. But I really try to take different things from each player and try to, utilize that in my own game to, maybe one guy run blocks a little bit better than the other guy, or catches balls, run routes, things like that. So you kind of watch a few different guys and try to just take little bits and pieces from each person.
Was there a tight end growing up that you like? Oh, if I'm going to play in the league, I want to be like him.
That's a great question. It's kind of a different answer. Most people wouldn't say this, but Joel Dreesen, a guy from my hometown that I loved.
Respect.
I really loved. Played tight end, went to Colorado State, and was really my idol growing up. Everyone from Fort Morgan wanted to be just like Joel, and I just loved watching him play. So a guy like him really, inspired me and wanted, I wanted to play the tight end position because of him, things like that. So, probably not the answer a lot of people give, but to me, he was a huge inspiration for me.
Want to ask you about one of your Colorado State teammates, Scott Patchen, defensive end, transfer from Miami, excellent, real good college pass rusher. Probably not going to be drafted, but a priority free agent. What's it like practicing against a speed rusher like that?
Yeah, Scott was a heck of a player. He's a hardworking guy and really brought a lot to our program. I really enjoyed, practicing against him. He worked hard and he had all these crazy moves that it was just kind of fun to kind of block guys like that and things like that. It was always fun. We'd get in fights and things in practice just because we were both competitive and wanted to win. And, I thought the offense was doing good and he thought the defense was good. So we just kind of get in these fights and stuff. But he's a great guy, great player, and I really love playing with him.
Trey McBride with us. Mackey Award winner out of Colorado State. The Mackey Award goes to the best tight end in college football. We obviously are interested in your playing career. The scouts are interested in your playing career and the traits that they see that they can transfer from college to the NFL. But there are other things that have gotten a lot of attention about you in this pre-draft process, including that you have two same-sex parents, and that's generated a lot of headlines. Can you tell us a little bit about how that has been in the pre-draft process?
It's been very different. I don't really know. I think it's cool. I think it's, unique, things like that. But really, to me, it's just it's normal. It's what I've grown up my whole life. It's nothing's new. It's normal to me. I don't really see why it needs so many headlines, things like that. It's kind of silly to me, but in all reality, I think it's just normal. My parents are great. They have taken great care of me, my siblings, and loved me unconditionally. So I really can't ask for more than that. But it's been very cool to be that shine a spotlight on it. But really, it's just normal to me.
Well, I'm glad you answered that question that way because things tend to evolve, right? And you would be the first player with that draft status. And I was there when Michael Sam was drafted, 2014, 2013, and he was the first openly gay player to be drafted. And now, it's gone on, and we've seen what Carl Nassib has done, and it doesn't matter anymore. So it's one of those things. Whenever you're the first, people are going to say, "Oh, you're the first. So what is that like?" And I think that's more than anything else. It's just because you're the first one down that path. That's why it becomes a thing.
Yeah, no, and it's just been to me. It's just normal. It's been, I mean, it's been my whole life. Nothing's changed anything. So it's just normal to me. I think it's a little silly sometimes, but really it's just normal, and I'm very grateful for them.
My last question, Trey, is where are you going to be for the draft? Are you going to be home and with your parents? Are you flying out to California to be with the guys at Wasserman, or what are you going to be doing day 1 and day 2 of the draft? Where will you be?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to be here in Fort Collins. I'm going to, stay home, stay where I went to school, and really just kind of have a little party, close friends and family. And it's just going to be a really good time. I'm super excited to kind of bring everyone together and just kind of celebrate a good time. It'll be a lot of fun just being close with my family and things like that. So really excited to kind of bring everyone home and just hang out with everybody for a couple days.
All right, Trey, we won't keep you much longer. I just got 2 more questions for you. In a dream scenario, like in your wildest dreams, this team calls your name. Do you have that team in mind?
Yeah, I think one team sticks out to me. I think, playing with Tom Brady would be just something, something that would be very cool. Playing with someone who's really done it, been the best to ever do it, has such a great career, twice my age, things like that. It'd be kind of cool to play with a guy like that and, catch a touchdown from him, would be very special, so that would be really cool in my opinion. But just need an opportunity somewhere.
Well, listen, Gronk hasn't officially said he's coming back for this year, so
no doubt.
It might work out.
It'd be cool to play with a guy like
him. They need a young tight end, so and you know what? They draft at the end of the first round, so it may be a win-win for you.
Yeah, who knows? I guess we'll find out in a couple days.
Yeah. All right, so before we let you go, let's assume that every GM and talent evaluator is watching this. Make the case why you should absolutely be a first-round pick in the draft in 2 nights.
I think I'm a competitor. I'm a winner, and I just love the game of football. I'm a great guy that won't have any issues off the field, and most of all, just love the game of football. We'll do everything to win, and bring a high energy and things like that to the program. And just a competitor loves to win and things like that. So just love the game of football.
Well, listen, Trey, we appreciate your time, and listen. It's always fun. The draft is the weirdest thing in the world because it's the end of something, but it's also the beginning of something at the same time. So just know that it's when you hear your name called, you've achieved something, and then the real work begins. Okay.
No doubt. Yeah, I'm super excited and just eager to get going. So.
All right, man. Be well and have a great time in Colorado, and we'll see if Jason Light and the Bucks were listening, and maybe they'll pick you up.
No doubt. Thank you guys so much for your time. I'll talk to you later.
Good luck, Trey. Man. Take care.
See
ya. Trey McBride there. Great young man. That was very fun. And, he's generated a lot of attention for a lot of reasons, and I think he handled all of that really, really well. And by the way, that interview and the show we're having is why you need to level up your fandom, ladies and gentlemen, with the 2022 PFN Draft Guide featuring the 2 of us. And even though we're featuring it, you should still pick it up. Be the smartest fan in the room with over 1,000 scouting reports, exclusive video player interviews, and behind-the-scenes look with video interviews of PFN experts, including stories like Tony discussing his day sneaking into the combine before it was a media event, and how an analyst like Oli Hodgkinson covers the game from across the pond. So go to ProFootballNetwork.com/NFL Draft Guide to level up your fandom now. All right, Tony. Again, it is crunch time. A lot of decisions have to be made. And let me just start with you here. I think this might be the strangest draft we're going to have in a long, long time. We're not going to have a quarterback taking number 1 unless the craziest thing happens of all time. We're not even sure who the number 1 pick is going to be. I think there's more uncertainty about this draft, especially at the top, than anyone I can remember.
Unlike past drafts, the first pick of the draft, or whoever selected first, is going to affect the second pick of the draft. And that will affect the third pick of the draft and the fourth pick of the draft. And I can't remember a year where the early picks are going to have such an impact, primarily because we didn't know. I mean, you knew quarterbacks were going 1, 2, 3 last year. You had a very good idea that the Falcons were going to take Kyle Pitts. I mean, as we'll get into, there's still a lot of uncertainty as what the Jaguars are going to do with the first pick. Yeah. It makes it exciting. It makes it anxious. There's a little bit of anxiety there. It also makes it fun.
Yeah, this is really what you just said. I think was so true, because normally in the last couple of years, well, if that guy takes this guy, it's not. If they take that player, it's not going to affect what, let's say, the Bills are going to do with we know. If there's a domino effect in this draft, that is going to be very, very, very different. Now, one of the things that we've talked about a lot on the Draft Insider show leading up to the draft is that we have a very unique situation this year. As we're doing this live, we have 8 teams that have multiple first-round picks and 8 teams that, as we are talking, do not have a first-round pick. The Rams, we know, will never have a first-round pick again. By the way, just dropped a Half-Forgotten History episode with GM Les Snead. You should check that out. That's a separate issue entirely. What are you hearing about teams trying to move up or down and utilize those multiple first-round picks, or a team trying to get back into the first round?
Well, I mean, obviously one of the keys is going to be Deebo Samuel. Because San Francisco does not have a first-round pick, and it's been back and forth. The latest is this. I woke up this morning, and it didn't seem like anything was imminent. I talk with a league executive once a year when we go through a mock first-round draft, and when it came time to the 10th pick of the draft, where the Jets were called for their second pick in the first round, he said the Jets will have Deebo Samuel. That pick belongs to San Francisco. Which kind of, I said, you sure about that? Because Deebo Samuel is very likely going to end up with the New York Jets. The Niners are going to trade him. There have been rumors tonight that I cannot confirm that the Niners have told Deebo Samuel that he can seek a trade. I don't know about that, but I know this. The feeling inside the league is the Niners are listening to offers for Deebo Samuel, and the Jets are going to put together such a massive package for Deebo Samuel that the Niners are not going to be able to turn away. Everyone says that Kyle Shanahan would like to keep Deebo Samuel, but again, the feeling is what the Jets are offering, as they said in The Godfather, the Jets are going to make the Niners an offer they can't refuse. That is the word in league circles tonight. Within the league executives, they feel that the number 10 pick will eventually go to the San Francisco 49ers, and Deebo Samuel will be a New York Jet. Whether it happens before the draft, whether it happens on draft night, whether it really happens at all, that is the feeling right now.
Well, it's interesting, too, because what we've seen pre-draft may affect what happens if this trade goes down. Look at the difference in draft capital that the Packers got from the Raiders for Devontae Adams, and then what the Chiefs got for Tyreek Hill. They got a 1, a 2, 2 fourths, and a 6th. How much does – now, look, we all know that Deebo is a very valuable player, but he's not Tyreek Hill. He's not the Stephon Curry of the NFL. He has unlimited range. He has an incredible duality to him that he's trying to avoid to prolong his career and get a bigger contract. But how much of the Tyreek Hill trade capital do you think will play into the offer that a team like the Jets will have to present to San Francisco?
Well, remember, that first-round pick that they got for Tyreek Hill, or those picks they got later on, this is the 10th pick of the draft. The Jets also have 2 early first-round picks. Early second-round picks. So 2 picks at the top of round 2. So, are they going to use one of those selections to sweeten the deal? They may have to. Feeling is Shanahan would like to keep Samuel. The Jets are basically, especially Joe Douglas, is just almost desperate to get a big-time playmaker. That looks like it's going to be Deebo Samuel. And you're right. There are some people who say, buyer beware. Deebo Samuel is a creation of Kyle Shanahan. And if you move him to another team, as you point out, you better use him the same exact way. Those 3-4 yard dump off passes, and let him create, let him take it from there. He's not a guy that you're going to throw down passes down the field. He's not a real great route runner. So you're going to have to make sure that Deebo Samuel system that is in San Francisco goes with him to whatever team he ends up with.
That's such a great point, Tony, because it's really interesting with Deebo. And again, I find him so fascinating because what he does makes him very valuable, yet the very same thing takes away from his value in terms of what you'd be willing to pay him.
Not only that is he doesn't really want to do that anymore. He's come out and said that, he wants his role to change. Now, does a 4-year, $100 million contract change that? He's like, okay, I will continue to do it for that amount of money. That is also part of the buyer beware. He doesn't want to continue to take that pounding because it's not going to add to his longevity. But the fact is he's not going to get paid like a big-time receiver because he is not a Devontae Adams. He is not an A.J. Brown.
Yeah, it really is fascinating because he's found this sort of niche with Kyle Shanahan that has made him very, very valuable, yet it's the same thing that's also going to decrease his contract offers. And I'm sure that, like you said, that's why he's saying he doesn't want to do that anymore. But it'd be the height of stupidity, for lack of a better term, to look at a player and say, this is what this player does well, then trade for him and not use him in that role.
Exactly it. And how does it react? Kyle Shanahan's not there anymore. Is he going to be the same, even in a system that is designed around what Kyle Shanahan did, but Shanahan's not there anymore. Sometimes that does not work out. Going to be interesting. Like I said, I don't hear that anything is imminent. I think as we get within draft day itself, we'll have a better idea.
So, I'm in Vegas. The draft is in Vegas. Give me the odds. What do you think this trade actually goes down?
From what I heard this morning, it's probably a good 70-30 that it's going to happen.
Wow. That's interesting. Remember, John Lynch is the GM in San Francisco, said a couple of very interesting things over the last week. Like, why on earth would I trade Deebo Samuel? And then my favorite one is, I could envision a scenario where Jimmy Garoppolo is on the team this year, which is his way of saying, we haven't gotten the offers we wanted yet, and people are concerned about the shoulder. So, you got to read between the lines, right? These last 2 days, everything that you hear out there comes out for a reason. There's an agenda that somebody's trying to push, and you have to sort of decipher that going forward. Okay, let's take a look here on cornerbacks in this draft. It's not a great draft for cornerbacks, but obviously you have a couple of really good ones off the top. Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati. By the way, for those that don't know, his full nickname when he got that nickname at the age of 6 was A1 Sauce Sweet Feet Gardner. And then it was shortened over the years to just Sauce. Because A1 Sauce Sweet Feet Gardner would be a little more difficult to sort of stick out there every time you say Ahmad Sauce Gardner. And then there's Derek Stingley. And Stingley, of course, was part of that great team at LSU his freshman year. Then he's had, for lack of a better term, availability issues over the last 2 years. But his talent, Tony, is undeniable. What are you hearing about where Stingley may go? And is it possible he might go ahead of Sauce Gardner?
It's very possible. I mean, I heard on Friday, the rumors were Houston at 3 could take Derek Stingley. When I first heard it, it was kind of like, stand back and let's make some more phone calls. Through the weekend and even this morning, through the weekend, I had got continued confirmation that, the Houston Texans really like Derek Stingley, especially Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith is pushing for Derek Stingley. Now, the fact is this, I mean, you mentioned it. You go back and you watch that 2019 film of Derek Stingley. It's magnificent. I mean, for lack of a better term, it's a thing of beauty. I mean, the techniques, the fundamentals, the wherewithal, almost the clairvoyance of knowing when the ball was in the air, coming in his direction the few times it did to get his head back around, position himself, and make plays on the ball. And this is a guy as a true freshman. You often don't see that, and he did it on a consistent basis. Like you said, didn't have a good season in 2020, was injured in 2021. People use the excuse, well, that entire LSU defense mailed it in 2020. I don't like that justification for poor play. The foot, is a concern for some people. But I continue to hear Lovie Smith, and this is from people in Texas, Lovie Smith is pushing for Derek Stingley. So, what a difference a week and a half makes. We go from Ahmad Gardner being a top 4, which he still may, to now Derek Stingley being selected ahead of Ahmad Gardner, potentially, number 3 to the Houston Texans.
In looking back at this, and you can tell me if I'm way off base here, which I would absolutely appreciate. One of the best corners in last year's draft was Caleb Farley, right? Caleb had some injury issues, and then they had the back issue.
Right.
And so that delayed his ability to get into camp with Tennessee. And then week 6, he tears his ACL. Whether it's right or wrong, fair or unfair, some people just tend to have more injuries than others. And I'm not saying it's their fault. I'm saying it just happens. But when you see that happen last year with Farley, who people had concerns about because of injuries going into the draft, and he is a first rounder and then he tears his ACL. We all know that these scouts, they're creatures of habit. How many of them would say, well, it happened with Farley last year, might happen with Stingley?
See, I don't think with Stingley, it's the perpetuance of constant injuries because Farley came into the league with 2 back injuries. I think it's a type of injury. It's a foot injury with Derek Stingley, and it may occur again. So it's the type of injury that may rear its ugly head again. That is the concern that I'm hearing from teams, and I think it's legitimate.
Yeah. And again, you just have to factor all this into it. And look, there's no question, by the way, that Derek Stingley knows a lot about football. His grandfather, for those that don't know, was Darryl Stingley, the wide receiver for the Patriots that was paralyzed in that preseason game against the Raiders when Jack Tatum hit him. So he is very familiar with the game and the costs of the game. And we'll see what happens with Derek Stingley on Thursday night going forward. He may go as early as number 3 overall to the Houston Texans. Okay, let's go through your flashpoint mock draft here, Tony. Some teams that you're really, really sort of zooming in on. And let's start with the first overall pick. Again, we talked about it at the top of the show. It's very unusual that we have a situation where 2 days before the draft, there is still great uncertainty about which player is going number 1 overall.
This is interesting because there's 3 players there, and everyone in the Jaguars front office has a favorite. The owner likes Aiden Hutchinson. The general manager, Trent Baalke, is in favor of Trayvon Walker. The head coach, Doug Peterson, wants Ekwonu of North Carolina State. So which player are they going to select? People have told me that, it's best if Baalke kind of relents and lets Doug Peterson get his way. Because if they take Trayvon Walker and it doesn't pan out or it goes south quickly, Baalke's going to get thrown under the bus and will be fired from the organization, which a lot of people thought he should have been fired in January. Let Doug Peterson make the pick or go with the one that Doug Peterson favors rather than pounding your fist for Trayvon Walker. Then there are other people say is you better go with what the owner wants, which is Aiden Hutchinson, because if it all goes south, well, you can blame the owner. It seems like a lot of defense, a lot of scared, but let's prepare ourselves if things don't work out. It's an interesting dynamic. I don't have the answer right now. We'll see if the owner wins. We'll see if the head coach wins, and we'll see if the general manager comes out on top. But that first selection is going to dictate what happens with the next 3 or 4 picks.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out, like people are talking about the athletic ability of Trayvon Walker, and I think that it's sort of short-sighting the athletic ability of Aiden Hutchinson. Like Aiden Hutchinson isn't a try-hard guy. Okay, he's a really good athletic player, and I think if you look at their numbers and their stats, like in some things, Aiden Hutchinson is above Trayvon Walker. In other things, Trayvon Walker is above Aiden Hutchinson. So it's not like one guy is this kind of player and one guy is another kind of player. If you could combine them, like Trayvon Hutchinson would be the perfect number 1 overall pick.
I think Trayvon Walker's a little longer guy. His arms are 3 inches longer. He was faster in the 40 at the combine, a little bit more athletic in that area. And I think that has people very excited.
All right, so we'll see what happens with Jacksonville, who, by the way, are picking first overall in 2 straight drafts. Kids, the rule to this is number 1 overall. You never want to pick number 1 overall 3 straight years. So let's make sure that that is not the situation for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We talked about this.
Just for the record, in my mock coming out tomorrow on the Pro Football Network, I did have the Jacksonville Jaguars taking Ekwonu. So I have the head coach, Doug Peterson, winning.
All right. Well, that would certainly shake things up because right now at Caesar Sportsbook, it is Trayvon Walker as the odds-on favorite to go first overall. So that would absolutely shake things up going forward. Let's move on to the Jets. We talked to them a little bit about with the Deebo Samuel situation, but again, they have 2 first-round picks very early. What do you think they want to do it for?
I think they want a pass rusher. I think they could get lucky.
Well, then they want Ekwonu to go number 1 overall.
Exactly. They could get lucky. Not only Ekwonu to go number 1, Derek Stingley to go number 3, because if they go that happens, very good chance that Aiden Hutchinson is taken 2, which means Trayvon Walker is sitting there looking at the Jets in the face with number 4. They could come away with a sensational player that fills a need, that has a tremendous amount of upside with that 4th selection. That's why I have the Jets taking at number 4. Now, that being the case, what if Ekwonu isn't there, and what if Trayvon Walker isn't there? I'm hearing that if either of those players aren't there, it's either going to be Ahmad Gardner or Jermaine Johnson for the New York Jets. Johnson would fill that pass rushing need. Ahmad Gardner is the bigger, pure number 1 corner, which the Jets really don't have on the depth chart right now. I think it's going to break right for the Jets. I think they're going to end up with Trayvon Walker.
All right, we'll see what happens there. Meanwhile, let's go on to the team that I think might be in the worst scenario in this draft, and that's the Carolina Panthers at 6 overall. They find themselves in desperate need for a quarterback when there really isn't a quarterback to be had at 6. The Baker Mayfield thing, by the way, the term mutually disinterested between Baker Mayfield and the Panthers is one of the most fascinating terms I've ever heard. That sounds like something out of a divorce. Your Honor, we're both mutually disinterested in each other. We'd like to move on. So they need a quarterback because the Sam Darnold thing hasn't really played out. They tried to resuscitate Cam Newton last year, and that really didn't work out either. So the Panthers, to me, are in the worst possible scenario, in desperate need of a quarterback without a quarterback really worthy of the 6th overall pick. So are they going to reach for someone like Malik Willis, or Does Matt Rule have the confidence in his job to be retained after a third season if it doesn't work out with a quarterback, that they're going to go somewhere else?
Now, even if they take Malik Willis at 6, I mean, the situation is I don't think they're going to win with Malik Willis in September, October, even the beginning of November, because he's just not NFL ready. I have them taking Charles Cross, the left tackle from Mississippi State, because it fills a need. He's the best player available when they're called to the clock. And he's also, in some areas, graded as the number 1 offensive tackle because he's the purest left tackle. I'm hearing that, and this has been out there, so I'm not the only one, that the Panthers would like to trade down. I don't know that there's going to be a big market for that 6th selection for the Panthers to trade down and then maybe take a Malik Willis or a Kenny Pickett in the middle of in the first round where they belong to go. Back to your point about the mutual disinterest, how it sounds like a divorce term, how ironic would it be if Panthers are forced into a situation day 2 or day 3 of the draft where they have to trade for Baker Mayfield? Is that like a marriage made from hell?
Yeah, pretty much. You're exactly right, because neither player or neither person in that situation really want that to be the case. But let's be honest, Baker's running out of options, and the Cleveland Browns have signed 700 quarterbacks, so they've completely undercut their leverage for anything that anybody's going to give them. They are telling everybody he's not going to be here. Offer us, a tackling dummy, and he's probably yours. So
that's the way it looks like. And basically, as I said earlier this week, what's going to happen when they trade it? Cleveland is basically going to be purchasing a draft pick because they're going to be paying the lion's share of that salary. So when they do eventually trade him, which they hope will be either Friday or Saturday, they're basically going to be just paying for a draft pick.
For a guy that was the number 1 overall pick in 2018. Life comes at you fast in this business, I tell you. Then there's Seattle, and I find Seattle's in an interesting position too. Obviously, they could draft a quarterback. They've got Drew Lock, whom they have, whether you believe it or not, it's true. They have liked him since 2019. Okay, they have liked Drew Lock out of Missouri since the time they passed on him in 2019, and Denver took him with the first or second selection in the second round that year. And they're in a weird position too, because what are they actually doing as a franchise? Are they trying to hang on and figure this out, or are they in complete strip it down to the studs mode? And I think a lot will depend on what they do in this draft.
I don't think that they're stripping down to the studs, but I do think that and I'm told, as a matter of fact, that they're going to look to trade down out of 9. I have them taking Trevor Penning of Northern Iowa. I don't know that they're going to take him at 9. I'm told both the Philadelphia Eagles as well as the New Orleans Saints are looking to move up, and the New Orleans Saints have inquired about that selection. I'm assuming it's for a receiver. If they trade down the Seattle Seahawks, they will take Trevor Penning later on. I'm also told that later on in the draft, when you get to the Green Bay Packers 2 selections, Seattle will look to trade back into the first round and take their quarterback, which I'm told is Desmond Ridder. So I don't think it's a total rebuild, but I think what Seattle wants to do is really work the draft, move down from 9, get their offensive tackle, then move back into the late part of round 1 and get their future quarterback that they could develop along with Drew Lock.
I just can't imagine that all those years when Russell Wilson back there running for his life, he's like, oh, now you take a tackle. Now? Okay, fine. Now you take a tackle, but I'm in Denver. Then there's Philadelphia. You mentioned them. Philadelphia's been very active. Howie Roseman did a great job last year with those trades he made with Miami. And he's, of course, made those trades with the Saints again this year. They have multiple first-round picks. They have 3 next year. It seems to me that they're basically set up to potentially take a quarterback in next year's draft to have the capital they use. So what are they thinking about doing with their first-rounders this year?
Or they're going to use that draft capital to move into the top 12, top 10, and take Jamison Williams. I'm told that is the guy that they are keying on. That would be the 3rd year in a row that the Eagles have taken a receiver in the first round. They missed on Rager. They seemingly hit on the Alabama kid last year. They like Jamison Williams. That is whether they move up. I think it's a situation where if you want Jamison Williams, you're going to have to move ahead of number 10, where the Jets could take him, or if the Jets trade that pick to San Francisco, San Francisco would take him. So look for the Eagles to be very active and potentially moving up for Jamison Williams in the first round Thursday night.
By the way, if they do that, they'll match the Detroit Lions as the only other team to use a wide receiver in the first round 3 straight years. And that was a disastrous run for the Lions when they took Charles Rogers, Roy Williams, and then Mike Williams. One of the great Side note, one of the great debates all time in a pre-draft show between Mel Kiper Jr. and Merrill Hodge, where Merrill just hated Mike Williams. And to this day, I'll never forget it. Mel said, "You're acting like he's an arena football player. I'll see you when Mike Williams walks into the Pro Football Hall of Fame." No, didn't quite work out the way Mel wanted that one to. But they figured out eventually a couple years later they got Megatron, and that was good. All right, then there's the New Orleans Saints. Again, they have 3 picks in the top 50. They have 3 picks in the top 50 in the draft after that deal with Philadelphia. What are you hearing about what they want to do?
Yeah, I'm told that they have already contacted or kind of poked around with Seattle about moving up into that top 10. People say it's for a quarterback. I got to think it's for one of the receivers because that's a huge need. I can't see them, giving away all that draft capital to move up and get one of the quarterbacks where they could probably sit where they are with those 2 first-round selections. But again, I had thought all along that New Orleans may move up to number 12 or in that area to draft a quarterback. I'm told they're looking to move up even higher.
Okay. And then let's get back to the 2 teams that made the big offseason moves with wide receivers. Green Bay let Devontae Adams go. And let's be honest, Green Bay let almost everybody go, right? Outside of Randall Cobb, who's back, and the other wide receiver who's left, the Equinemius St. Brown went. Marquez Valdez-Scantling went to Kansas City, and obviously Devontae went to the Raiders. They have to replenish wide receivers, even though in the Aaron Rodgers era they've never taken a wide receiver in the first round. What are you hearing about what the Packers are doing?
Well, never say never, because I'm told that they really like Treylon Burks. They feel he's a good fit for the system, and there's a very good chance they're going to use one of those 2 first-round choices on Treylon Burks. They could double up, and they could come back in the second round and take Alec Pierce of Cincinnati, the Big 12 receiver who they like, and again, who they feel is a good system fit, would work well with Aaron Rodgers. They may look interior offensive line, but as I said earlier, if the opportunity arises, they could trade down into the second round, let Seattle move up and get the quarterback Desmond Ridder, and then they'll maybe get another receiver, maybe get another interior offensive lineman, a guy like Cameron Jurgens of Nebraska, the center who also projects to guard, who was moved up draft boards the past month.
All right, then let's talk about Kansas City. Obviously, they had back-to-back picks at the end of the round, 29 and 30. But more importantly, Tony, they have the most picks in this draft. They have 12 picks, and they have quality picks. They have 2 first-rounders, 2 second-rounders, 2 third-rounders, and 2 fourth-rounders. This is a draft where you want a lot of picks, Tony. Like, it's not top-heavy, but there's a lot of NFL talent in this draft. And I believe the Chiefs have the draft capital to dictate this draft more than any other team because they can do whatever they want. They don't have 12 roster spots. Okay? They don't have 12 roster spots in Kansas City. So what are we looking at in how the Kansas City Chiefs are going to maneuver this draft?
Yeah, and you want a lot of picks in round 2 because that's where they can get their receivers. That's where it's deep. That's where they can also get their safety to replace Honey Badger. Everyone says it's going to be a receiver and Boye Mafe for the Chiefs in round 1. Boye Mafe, the pass rusher from the Minnesota Golden Gophers. I'm told the Chiefs could go defense in round 1 if the receiver that they like or a highly rated receiver that they covet is not there. The other defensive player that they really like, Kyler Gordon, the cornerback from Washington, who they feel could come in and quickly start right away. I've not heard too much about Kansas City packaging those selections or making a move up or to the early part of the draft, or at least the middle part, to get a guy like Jamison Williams. Right now, they seem content on sitting where they are, see what receiver falls to them, going with 2 defensive players. They could also, the other player that they really like is Jaylen Petrie, the safety from Baylor, the guy who was a hybrid linebacker, safety, played tremendously well at the Senior Bowl, showed great ball skills, had an outstanding combine workout. Somebody said they could take him in the first round, but I think they'll take Petrie with one of those second-round picks, really to come in to be their honey badger of the future, if you will.
Yeah, and so many people are talking about wide receiver for Kansas City. Listen, I'll just tell you this. I think they're very comfortable with their wide receiver core right now. I mean, if they get a guy and it works out, great. Mecole is going to get the opportunity to play a little more like Tyreek Hill. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is bigger and he's fast. You have Juju underneath, and you still have Travis Kelce. They're not as bad at wide receiver as I think the perception is for them. And they're of the belief, much like the Green Bay Packers are, our quarterback will make our wide receivers better. And that's their philosophy going into this. So I agree with you. It wouldn't surprise me if they go defense, and then try and pick up a wide receiver in the second round.
One last thing, in the mock draft tomorrow, the end of the second round, I have the Chiefs actually, as the second round closes out, taking a receiver by the name of Calvin Austin from Memphis.
Yeah.
5'7.5", 175 pounds, ran a 4.3 at the combine, plays to that speed, was hands down the best route runner at the Senior Bowl. Wednesday of the Senior Bowl, when it was pouring rain, he was the only guy to stay on his feet and run sharp routes, catches the ball. The only problem is he's 5'7.5". If he was 5'11", 6 foot, he would be a first-round pick. But I think that is the kind of player that is a perfect fit. And he's also an outstanding return specialist. That is it's like a perfect.
Does that sound familiar? Does that sound
exactly.
familiar, Kansas City?
Yeah. And again, they don't have to wait. They don't have to get that guy in the first round. I think that's the direction they look in round 2.
Yeah, and again, for those that don't remember, Tyreek Hill was a 5th or 6th round selection in 2016 out of South Alabama after having some issues at where he began his collegiate career.
West Alabama.
All right. West Alabama. Thank you, West Alabama. Who doesn't? Directional Alabama. I mean, absolutely. The pride and joy of every NFL draft team. We'll take a player from Directional Alabama University. All right. We got some time for some questions here from the audience. Let's throw them up. Andrew wants to know, Tony, what are your thoughts on today's report in the New York Daily News about the Jets wanting Ekwonu at 4? Are you hearing the same thing? Do you think the Texans take him at 3? And, of course, you just said earlier, you hear they're looking at Stingley at 3 in Houston. Yeah,
I think if Ekwonu's there at 4, the Jets take him. There's no doubt about it. If Ekwonu's there at 4, that means that Trayvon Walker's not on the board. So again, it depends. It depends on who's available. I think the Jets would absolutely take Ekwonu at 4. I think with the Texans, it's a debate between Trayvon Walker, if he's there, and Derek Stingley. I think they're going to pass on Ekwonu with that 3rd selection. Does that mean anything in the Mekhi Becton saga, in your opinion? To me, it does, and the other people cover the Jets. It does. I mean, it could be if you've got the guard situation figured out. The question is, do you think that Ekwonu can play left tackle? Because if he does, then he's your future replacement for George Fant. I spoke with somebody on Sunday, and they said, you know what? You're going to put Ekwonu at left tackle until he proves that he can't play left tackle. If he can't play left tackle, you've got yourself an outstanding right tackle. At the very worst, you have yourself an all-pro guard for the next 10 years. And I agree with that exactly. I agree with that 100%. So if they take Ekwonu, there is a belief that they could try and move on from Mekhi Becton by trading him. Okay, well, we'll go on to the next question. Charles wants to know any new medical red flags we're hearing for the potential first rounders. We talked about that a little bit with Stingley at 3. I haven't heard anything major on Evan Neal, but I've heard he's got a knee issue, which has raised some concern. And I hear, like a lot of Alabama players, he's just got a lot of nicks and bruises that all added up for a guy that big has some teams concerned and thinking twice about taking him that early. So if Evan Neal happens to slide more than is projected, it's probably because there's not one medical condition with Evan Neal. It's a lot of little things, plus there's a knee issue that some are concerned about. What's the old line? You leave Alabama with a ring and a surgery. That's exactly. Sort of the way it is under Nick Saban. Yeah, so what you're saying, real quick, before we get to this other question here, there's no Trey Smith situation in this year's draft where he had first-round talent, and he fell all the way to the 6th because of that heart condition, and he was a steal for Kansas City. Yeah, I heard that. Or say an Azeez Ojulari like last year, who was projected as a top 20 pick, fell into the middle part of round 2. I've not heard any of that with the top players. Okay, time for a couple more questions. Andrew wants to know if the Seahawks trade back with the Saints, would Penning still be available at 16? I don't know. Penning is climbing. He's climbing right now. I don't think there's much to the rumor that Carolina would take him at 6. I do think that if Houston doesn't get their right tackle at 13, they could look Penning. I think the Ravens could look Penning at 14. I'm told that if they trade with Philadelphia anyway, the Seattle Seahawks, they think that Penning will be there at 15. But there's going to be 2 teams that select in front of them that that Penning will have to bypass. Okay, got time for 2 more questions. This, I think, is fascinating, right? We went into this season, Kayvon Thibodeau, and now this guy, Anthony, is asking a wonderful question here. Why is Kayvon Thibodeau suddenly nowhere near the top 10 anymore? Well, he also asks, why isn't Seattle taking him? I don't think he's going to be there for Seattle. I think Thibodeau can end up number 7 to the Giants with their 2nd selection. And if he gets past the Giants, I think he ends up with the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons need an edge rusher. Falcons need to go best. Falcons need everything, available. Tony. Falcons need everything. Yeah. So really, I said, and that's who I have the Falcons taking my mock draft. And I said, you know what? They take best player available. They fill the need with an outstanding player. They hit a home run on all three levels. Although he may not be there, the Giants could take him with pick number 7.
All right, time for one last question, and it's from Antonio. What are you guys hearing on the Giants?
Yeah.
And Tony, what are you hearing about the Giants specifically? Obviously, it's a huge year for them with their quarterback. So what do you think they're going to do?
There is a lot of talk out there that the Giants like Charles Cross. Someone close to the organization said, we're glad that everyone feels that way because we really want Evan Neal. We want a right tackle. We've got an outstanding left tackle in Andrew Thomas. We want a plug-and-play right tackle, which is what Evan Neal is. Evan Neal is going to be able to transition to the right tackle position in the NFL a lot quicker than Charles Cross. Remember, he played there in 2020 for Alabama. Again, if he gets past the Giants, remember what I said with the first question about the injuries. It could be a situation where the Giants are scared off by those nicks and bruises that he's had over the years playing for the Crimson Tide.
It is kind of fascinating, though. Like, they finally move on from Dave Gettleman, and this would be a very Dave Gettleman pick if that's what they go for, right? I mean, that's modus operandi still.
Well, he wasn't the MVP of the Senior Bowl. That's what Dave Gettleman usually likes.
We're not picking on Dave Gettleman. We're just saying. All right, Tony. Awesome as always. It's 2 nights away. It's the most fun night of the entire offseason. It's going to be great. And remember, even though we all focus in on the first round, your team is really built rounds 2 through 7. Like, that's where your team is built. So enjoy the sizzle of the first round. But if you really want to see what your team is going to be like, concentrate on rounds 2 through 7. That's where the stake is. And the stake in this year's draft is Wagyu beef good. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, the media focuses on the first 32 picks, but the war rooms and the general managers and the scouts are out there for rounds for day 2 and day 3, because especially in this day and age in salary cap football, where you got one guy making such a high percentage of the salary, you better make sure you hit on those late round picks because they're inexpensive and they fill in need areas on the depth chart.
You can't build a championship team with a first-round pick, but you sure as hell can in rounds 2 through 7. So we'll see what happens going forward. Tip of the cap, my friend, and I'll talk to you on Thursday night, okay?
Enjoy the draft. Enjoy Vegas.